Hello. I think I'm live. Hello and happy Friday. I have been doing this for a long time now. I have no idea when I'm live. It says you're live, but it's weird. But hello and thanks very much for coming in. Let me see. Paul is here. Hello, Paul. Thanks very much. Scott is here. Hello, Scott. Stephen is here. Hello, Stephen. Thanks very much for coming in, everybody. Today's gonna be a lot of fun. I did some really fun stuff with the diorama this week. It was all lighting. And, at the end of last week, I thought I was just ready to dive in to, doing all the lighting and stuff like that. And I hadn't done any, or very little, I should say, of the prep of the actual diorama. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about really diorama design, because it's not just, I got my lights and I'm going to throw them in there. There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I've got a little, here it is. I've got this, like all kinds of stuff I want to talk about. And I'll show you that, because I think it's one of those things that when you start doing lighting, you start noticing all these different things about lighting, the shadows and using it as an effect, or just lighting something. But a lot goes into that. I'm also going to show you this really cool little clip I made, and I've got nicer pictures of it, and I've got the top down all set up, so we're going to look at that too. But I made this really cool clip that will go in the foam, and then it's adjustable. You can kind of, once it's in the foam, you can adjust it up and down. You can't rotate it, but there is a plate on the bottom of this piece that's a little off kilter, so you can kind of shine light in a little bit of a direction, and that's by design. So we're going to talk all about that, and I'm going to show you how to build one. And I think once I show you how to build it, I think that you'll build probably a better one, because it's all available stuff. It's all styrene. It's evergreen styrene. Evergreen Products, I think, is the styrene company that is pretty prominent out there, and it's just regular stuff. So that's what we got going on today, and I'm really happy you're here. So let me see here. I'm going to go over to the slides real quick, and I want to show you what we got over there. So here, just my little cover slide, is the lowest level of the diorama, and I've got one kind of lights in there from Diorama. I've also got my own lights that I built and put in there, and I'm really excited because I really like how it came out. I think they look great. Okay, so let's look at some of these here things I put together for you. So today we're going to discuss lighting design. As I said, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with it, and I think that's really important to note when you're going into it. And because, I mean, okay, this is the issue. Last week, I'm like, yeah, we'll just go, just like I said. And when I did that, I'm like, well, now I got to do this. And then I'm going to do that. Now, then there's that other thing. So I just had to slow down. I had to say, look, I really want to get these lights in, and there's some really important things that I want to consider. And that's where, this all came from. So, the first thing I thought was just, I got to figure out where to put them, location. I might need to modify the space. Oh, okay. So I'm going to modify the space. Then what color, what temperature light? Am I going to use physically colored lights like blue, greens, blah, blah, blah. This is going to increase time in the build. What kind of mood do I want in that space? When you think about colors for your light, pardon me, I want to bring this over here so I can show you something. When I'm thinking about colors in my light, or adding light and the color of light and what that's going to do to the colors in the diorama, I never used to think about that. I'm thinking I just put light in there and it'll just give this color or this hue or this, it'll brighten it or whatever. What light does is it changes the color of what you've already painted as well. And I mean, you find that on your own real quick when you start adding lights. And I'm not talking about a colored light. I'm talking about a temperature of a colored light. Or not a colored light, but just a temperature of a white light, because you have white that's warm, that's very low on the light color spectrum, which is something I also kind of started to learn about. And then you've got bright, almost bluish light. So you have this full range of light that's still considered white, and it goes from an almost amber color to an almost blue color, and there are temperatures, if you will, all along that spectrum. So as I add these lights and I'm looking at the paint that I've already added to that area, I find that I may need to make adjustments to that color. Or if it really blows my painting out, the colors that I wanted and all that work that I put into it, maybe I even want to change the color of the light that I'm putting in, the temperature, or even go to a colored light. So there's just a lot of stuff to consider there. Mounting them, we're going to look at that quite a bit. The effects, or EFX, when I'm using a light, there's lots of different ways to do it. The first way you think is just, illuminating a room. Like you walk into a room, you turn it on, and the light's on. That's like your basic number one way of doing lights. Well, think about this. You walk into your house, you turn on the light, and then you go to like a study or a library or a crafting space, or maybe a place just you like to chill out and play video games or something like that. Just a place in your house. Well, you may not want, if you want kind of a mood, you want to just I want to relax. This has been a heck of a week. We just want to relax. So in there, you may not turn on the big light. You turn on lamps and smaller lights, maybe a picture frame light to highlight a really nice picture that you love of your family or something like that, or a scene, or your horse or your dog or your whatever. That is more of kind of an effect lighting, but even kind of a mood lighting, right? Then the last part of it is like an effect lighting. An effect lighting is I'm using the light in a very, very specific way on a very specific place or item or something in your scene that you really want to highlight. You want to draw the eye toward it. You want that thing to stand out with all of the previous lighting that's in there. The wash of light that lights the room, and then the individual mood lighting that kind of sets the area's look and feel. But then there's that effect lighting that says, hey, in this space, I want you to look at that thing. And effect lighting can do that. And so these are all those considerations that you can make about your lighting in your diorama. And that's a little bit unique than just doing a display, right? When you do a display, let's say I've got a tank. I love tanks, and I've got this tank and I'm just doing a display, and maybe I want it to look like it's at night. So I have a lamp post there. And so I put my light in there, and if I have the lights out and stuff like that, it looks fantastic, right? Because you just got this one light and all the shadows, stuff like that. Then you take that and you go to maybe your model club and show someone, or you even want to take it to a show, right? You want to take it to a show and enter it. Well, it's not dark at a show. That lighting that you put on there is also affected by the outside environment. So that's another thing that we have to think of. After all of those other things on there, where's it going to be displayed? How are you going to present it? What's the lighting situation you're going to be in? At a show, there's typically lots of lights. And here's the other thing. When we talked about effect lighting, sometimes we're talking about the direction, where it's coming from. Where's the object that I'm trying to light, and where that light is has a lot to do with how that thing looks. The shadows that are cast, the perspective, the highlight, the low light, all of those things gets completely blown out at a show because light comes in from everywhere. So you don't have control of the light. So that's a regular display, okay? In a diorama, the ones that I kind of do, where you've got a room inside the diorama, you can get in there. You have defined the space. You've got walls, you've got a ceiling, you've got a back, door. All of those things go in so that you can really create that environment. You still have to consider all those things, and we're going to talk about that. But you can create an environment that you can control much better, even in a show environment, because I've created a room, I've created a scene within the diorama. So I think that's kind of cool, and we're going to talk a lot about that. I got to say hello to some folks. Hey, Homefront Forge is here. Daniel, hello. Thanks very much. I've been watching the lighting closely. Thanks very much. You know, this lighting thing has been a lot of fun. You know, and I should say this before we go any further. You know, Diorama has sponsored the video, and they've sponsored lighting the diorama. And I don't want this to come off as like I'm really pushing diorama, because what I'm really doing is I'm playing with a new toy. I am a person that got these, you know, they gave them this whole box of you know, lights and controllers and things like that. And we're going to look at those today because I found some stuff that I'm like, wow, that's just the greatest thing. And so they you know, we talked and came to the point where they're sponsoring videos, and I love that. But it's also me never having used a kit before, and it's also me being excited about finding things in this lighting system from Diorama that now I can apply to my diorama. And that's a real key part of this. And I kind of stepped back and looked at that. You know, I was all excited to get some lights, get them for free. They're super high quality. All I have to give is my opinion. I'm not being paid to say I like them. You know, anything like that. It's just me evaluating it and then looking at it and going, wow, I really do like these, and look how I can deploy them, because that's what you've got to figure out. It takes a little bit of time. You know, when let's, as an example, when I'm trying to look for a light of mine that I don't have one. So let's say I've got a light. Anyway, my finger is a light. Okay. I know the properties of that light. I've been working with it for a number of years now. I know how to deploy that within my diorama. And I know how to wire it. I know basically how it's going to look. I know how to mount it, you know, how to fix it in there in a certain way, because I've been working with it for 4 years, right? Well, now I've got this new tool, right, with these lights, this new accessory that I kind of got to get a little bit more familiar with. That's how this little mounting clip came about. And again, I'm going to show you how to make this today. We're going to make it live during the live stream. And I think it's useful. Even if you don't make exactly this, I think the idea and the concept is solid enough that you can make your own with your own supplies, depending on what kind of, you know, styrene you have. But that's it, you know, figuring out how to use this new supply, this new tool, this new ability to light my diorama. That took me a little time, and you get ideas from it because it has different properties. It has different ways of deploying it within my diorama that I had to think about a little bit. You know, I want this light, I like that light, but now how is that going to fit into my diorama? And the colors are a huge part of that. So that's what this is all about. So I hope you like that. And please, please, please do ask questions. I've been doing this for a long time, but I've been doing it on my own, building up all my lights and stuff like that. Now I've got a system where the lights are all pre-wired. There's some really neat stuff that I found we're going to talk about, like this thing that allows me to still build my own fixtures, the torches in this picture here in the center, those torches all the way in the back. And we're going to see how I worked on those. I made those months ago before I even knew about diorama. They're made in my method. They're made with just regular lights I bought on Amazon. And I did not put resistors in them yet, because when I'm building my lights, I typically will use a benchtop power supply, you know, just another piece of kit that I have to put lighting in my dioramas. So I do all this kind of stuff, but I didn't know that the stuff that I've built, those 4 torches that are in the bottom of this, I could still light with the diorama lighting kit, which is brilliant. I was able to take one of their little modules, and I'll show you that I can take all my 4 lights that I put in there. They're all the same kind of light. That's a big part of it. But I take all those, I wired them together, no resistors. I plug it into this module from Diorama, and I just lit them up. Done. And that was fascinating to me because I really do like to make my own fixtures. You know how you present the light. The video I've been working on for a month is ready to pop. It's ready to go. I've got to do just some finishing up stuff, and it's the thing I've been struggling with. But it's all about fixtures because I like to build fixtures. These fixtures are important because the fixtures that I'm building to hold the light tells the same kind of story of every other detail that's in the diorama. It's part of it. This thing, this component that I'm putting in there just emits light. So I really, really like building my own stuff. Well, I can still do that with the diorama system. Love it. That's very, very cool. So we'll look at that. Let me get back to this. I want to show you what we got. So we're going to go through all of that. This is also all about the storyline, creating that storyline from my favorite fantasy author, Raymond Feist. These 2 books are key to building this diorama. And if you're a Feist fan, because I've talked about him a lot, or if you've discovered Feist recently, or if you're thinking about it, I think it's a wonderful set of books. It's fantasy, it's dragons, it's magicians, it's knights. It's that kind of thing. But it's typically about, there's a recurring theme in Feist books, and it's people growing. Boys mostly. He's a male author, so he kind of writes what he knows. So he writes these wonderful stories about the growth. And typically it starts with a young person or persons, and they grow in this world, in this land, and in this particular story. One of them was, well, I don't want to get too deep in the story, but it's a wonderful growth kind of story. And I think Feist is fun because it puts a lot of life lessons in there. And I just thoroughly enjoy reading his stuff. So it's based on that. And on the left is the diorama. It is a playable diorama. It's a diorama that you're meant to play a D&D game within. Each of these layers unstack. And now what I'm doing, the main structure, all of that stuff is in. And now what I'm doing is I'm just trying to detail out the different areas of it, finish it off, so I can run a bloody game in it. That's I want to do an online game in this thing. I'm so excited to do that. I've only played D&D a couple of times. That's it. Just a couple of times. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But I want to build a story, and I've got a story all in mind, and with this, as the place to do it, and the place to hold this campaign. And so I'm building out. All of the details are going to enhance that story to make it fun and interesting. And surprises. That's the other thing. I have to do surprises. All of the stuff that I'm working on right now is potentially going to be covered. So if we go back to this full shot of it, it's 44 inches tall. Everything from the streets about midway high needs to be covered from that point downward. And it's important for that because in the story, as the dungeon master guide you through the story, it's going to happen up, above ground, and it's eventually going to lead you down below ground to 2 separate levels. And there's a lot going on in those levels, and that's what we're detailing out right now and trying to light properly. Okay, so I think that's a fair rundown of where we are. Let's take about Barrett's basement. So last week, I worked on Barrett's basement. This is 1 level. This is below the large building that's on top. And Barrett's basement is nice because I've got a basic coat of paint in there. Everything's been painted. I've also got a few items in here that I want to show off. The other thing I want you to remember when I was talking about outside influences, outside atmosphere, whatever lighting from the outside, that's going to play a huge part in this. And so I thought that would be a great example. So here you see what this looks like. These are details that are going to be in there. They can move. I've got to find the right place for them. I'm not done, putting stuff in here, but there are certain things that I want to show you. There's certain things that I want to help portray the story, move the story along. Here's the basic bird's eye view of where everything's going to be placed. Then I figure out, okay, these specific items, how are they going to be viewed in the environment when I put the lighting in? So let me back out here a little bit with this shot. So what I have here is it shows you, I've only got 2 lights in here. And let me show you this real quick. This is the ceiling for that area. And so what I've done here is I've placed 2 sticky lights, one here and one here on those beams. And I think they're going to stay there. I do like how it is. And the reason for first putting them there is this. As you look at this room in the diorama, it progressively just gets darker the further you look in it. When you're standing away from it, you can see all the stuff basically on the periphery, on the outside. Do I have another picture that's going to show that a little better? I'm sorry, I'm trying to get through here. No, it doesn't. But basically what I'm trying to show you here is this is the front. You see my cursor along the front? That is the front of the diorama. That all gets ambient light. That all has the atmospheric, light coming in. So I don't really need a light out in front here. I really only need light in the back. And that's what we have. We have light in the back of it. It's almost an even light, but because it's so close to the wall, see how it's reflecting heavily off the wall in that one shot there on the right-hand side? That helps give a feeling of almost like a spotlight. You're in a dark area. When even if it's not dark in there, but if I can show a light like shining on something, it gives the impression of I'm like in a cellar. I'm in a dark place. The light is causing the light beams or whatever. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to say that pool of light that you see on the right-hand side there indicates it's dark in there without it being dark in there. Does that make sense? That is what I'm going for. And when we look at this little picture, I think it does that nice. It looks like a cellar. It's a little bit, the floor is a little bit not as tall. The kind of stuff that I have in there is cellar-like, I guess. It's supposed to be a cellar. Now, why am I making a big deal out of this? Well, when I build the diorama, one of the first things that I'm trying to do is not, I don't want to have to explain everything. When you look in that room, when you look in that area, it should be, I believe, wildly apparent what it is. The visual explanation needs nothing else. You look and you're going, cellar, right? But further, I want to go ahead and say cellar at night or cellar dark or cellar scary, or you know what I'm saying? I want to give those impressions visually without having to say, oh, and it's dark down there. Oh, and look out, it's scary down there. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do it visually. The lighting definitely helps that. So having it reflect off the wall was not by chance. It is a very intentional thing. Okay. So utilize that, think of lighting this scene as you would lighting a movie scene. I've explained that a lot of times. That's where I get a lot of my direction about how to light and stuff like that. I watch the special features on movies that I love, and that really gives me a lot of information about how to do my lighting. Okay, so that is lighting the cellar. That's kind of our little idea. More of the things need to happen in the cellar. I need to highlight certain areas. I need to draw your eye back, which I've done with all the vegetables all the way in the back. I need to show certain things I want to show. And if you'll notice here, let's get to another picture right there. There's a secret underneath that. You lift up these crates, and that is a passage to the floor below, the sewer system. It's not the only passage, but that's one entrance, but it's covered. It's a secret entrance. So I try to not have a lot of light there. I don't want to I don't want to guide the player's eye towards something that should be hidden, if that makes sense. You know, I'm not trying to give those kind of clues. So anyway, that's some of the stuff that I do. Okay, let's look at more of this. We are going to look at, golly, modifying the ceilings. So this is one of the things that last week I hadn't done, that I said, yeah, I can just dive in and put these lights in, but I hadn't done any of this stuff. And the reason I think this was important is the ceilings were virtually flat. So when you looked into this area, it was just the bottom of a pink piece of foam. There was no texture, there was no nada. So I textured the bottom, and in a video earlier this week, I said I use this ball kind of round bit. That's the bit right there. And what that did was it gave me this beautiful kind of texture that I enhanced with paint later on. So let's take a look at that. So this is while it's still being painted. And what I did here was I painted it first with black. Then I painted it then I dry brushed it so that all the highlight whites and stuff like that popped out. Then I airbrushed it with blue and green. Then I went back and I dry brushed it. Geez, I was trying to think of what the word is. I couldn't even think of it. I dry brushed it with white again. Then I did, I know this is a lot, but then I did it like a tone with black over the whole thing to kind of tone everything down. Then I went in with a little hand brush and did they're supposed to be sparkles. And then I went back with the airbrush with white and did kind of little blooms around those areas. What I'm going for, and I think in some pictures it kind of looks that way, and it looks pretty good, is what you see like on a ceiling over water. If you've ever been in a grotto, if you've ever been in like somebody's like indoor pool or at an indoor pool, and there's light coming in through somewhere, and then you look at the ceiling, you see this wonderful pattern. That's what I'm trying to emulate here. That's what I wanted on the ceiling of the lowest area. I don't know where the water's at, but I was trying to make that look like that. And like this, I think this is a pretty good shot of it. And I like that. The texture, the physical texture is there. That's what I did with that ball rasp on the end of my Fordham. But getting the paint and all that kind of stuff in there, that was all hand done because it was all just one color. Now, after this was done, I coated it, and I've never done this. I coated it with glossy Mod Podge. And I'll show some other pictures of that. I'll actually pick it up and show it to you. That came out good. I was really, the reason I took this picture was because before it goes clear, it's white, and I was really worried I was going to lose all of that detail I put in. I didn't. I think it looks good. So the next thing, before I show you what it looked like, I needed to mount the torches. So on the back wall, so this is what this is. This is the back wall. The back wall to this entire lower level just comes off. That's this picture here, right here. So that's the back wall of the lower level, and I just took it off. And then I started mounting the torches because I hadn't done that yet. I hadn't decided on my electrical setup or anything like that. So I left these free. Well, I glued them in, and I basically glued them in by using Mod Podge and sanded grout, the same combination that I use for ground terrain and stuff like that. So I went to each one of these four, set them in. It had to dry for a little bit. Then I moved on to the next. And then I wired all of these. I took all the connections to them. You see, I'm joining the ones on the left. I wired this all up. And then I was able to utilize the diorama lighting system. And that's how it looks. Now look at the ceiling in this shot, if you will. That's what I meant by I wanted to get the texture in the ceiling, but I wanted it to look something like water. Now, I don't necessarily think it looks like water here, but I am very happy with how it came out because I do think there's a little bit of that comes through. Um, so I'm very, very happy with the ceiling. The lights aren't correct. The color of light, I'm still messing with. As a matter of fact, I've got the kind of bluish white lights in there now, and they really help it, but they're not bright enough. So I've got some more work there to do. Okay, so now lighting the sewer and our little lighting mount. So this is what the sewer looks like when I've got some lights in it. And you'll notice, see that hole in the top? That is where a light is kind of hanging. And here's another one where the light is hanging a little bit lower. And in the back, you can see that bluish light is hanging just very proud. It's just hanging down in there. The thing that I had was I had these lights and I had a nice way, colors. I like the amber and the blue, the mix of that I think is really nice, frankly. But I had no way of suspending these lights here. I mean, I could just, hot glue, I guess, but I wanted something a little bit better. And so this is this clip that I've been talking about. And what this is an I-beam. It's just a little piece of I-beam from Evergreen. I don't know if it's Evergreen Plastics or Evergreen, I don't know, but it's Evergreen. You get these at your hobby shop. And so I've got a piece of, this isn't the girder beam. Here's the girder. It's I-beam, 1/4-inch I-beam. And then I've got a piece of U-channel. U-channel being this, right? The little sides here aren't that big, and I've got the top down to show you because we're going to build one next. But what allowed me to do is build this little clip that'll suspend itself in the little holes that I have in the ceiling of that room, the sewer. Let's go back here and take a look. And that's how to build it. I want to show you the pictures of it in the. Well, I didn't do that very well at all. There's no picture of it. I'll show you something here in a second. Yeah. So basically, I can show you here with the top down. And again, what it does is these little springs, they're just little brass springs. I made them. I didn't have to buy them or anything like that. They're just brass wire. These little springs, as you force this down into the hole that I've got for the light, the little springs are going to go ahead and play against the sides of it and then lock it in. And I'm telling you, it doesn't come back out. You can continue to push it all the way through because they're spring loaded. So if you mess up the first time, you just do it a different way. And it works great. Now, one thing I want to show you about this. Looking at the little end pad on the left-hand side there, that is at an angle, and that's very, very specific. So here I've got that little pad at an angle. It's not straight up and down, perpendicular to the rest of the beam. It's at a little angle, and that's so I can aim that light. I said that earlier, but now you can see what I'm talking about. It's not a lot. It's not like going left. But it does allow me to kind of adjust this as I'm putting it in to get that light to kind of shine in a certain direction. The other thing, these holes that I've created, let's look at the bottom side. So if you look at the bottom side of these holes that I've created, this is one of the holes. Nope, sorry. That's one of the holes. There's another one. Everything's backwards. There's another one of the holes that I'm going to put them in. They're conical in shape. So as it comes out of the bottom of that piece of foam, it has this shape. The depth in which I put these, because it is adjustable, right? The clip is sitting static right now, and I can move the light up and down. If I have the light higher in that conical area, it creates a spotlight below. If I have it lower, if I bring this thing all the way to the bottom, so it's just above the plane, then I get, a much broader light pattern. So it's adjustable in that way. That angle, which I haven't made an adjustable angle, which you could pretty easy, to make this thing little like that. So it would be omni adjustable. But the point is, it's just a very simple clip. And so you can go up and down, you can turn it, get exactly what you want. And when you're done, then you can just clip off the excess, because again, I don't have like an open top here. There's another piece that has to go on top of here. There's another piece that goes on top of here. So it doesn't need to be flush here. So I'm not going to leave them. Joyce, who's a viewer that I hear from a lot, she's like, well, maybe if you could leave that adjustable. Well, partially I could, but I do want to glue it in, because I got to cut part of the mounting I-beam here. I got to cut part of that off once I find exactly where I want it. So I'm going to show you how to make these now on the top down. It's not hard. And again, I believe it's stuff that you can find and you can use in your shop. I am real quickly going to reset my camera. It's always fun. And I'll just swap you over. So let's take a look at this. So here is, here's also the top of those holes. And here's what I wanted to show you earlier. And that is this one. So you can see how I've got one pressed in there. That's how they press in there. Now you can't put them in there like that and then try to put the light in, and I'll show you why. So here's the light, on the shaft, and this will also explain some of the other properties of it. Okay, so here's the clip that we're going to be making. If I take that off, what I wanted here was a way to, number one, mount the light. I'll turn this down or off so it's not so bright. I didn't want this to stick out from the side. I wanted some way to hold that wire in, to the mount. So I came up with this slider that will allow me to go in from the side. See, that's open right there. So I can go in from the side, turn it a half turn. And then when I place that in there, it holds the wire back and allows it to be adjusted. And, we're going to put it into the foam. So that is the design in the clip. So how do we make it? I'm going to put this here. I think it's going to be easier to show you. So what I've done is I've taken the U channel right there. And where is my girder? And here's the girder beam. And the reason I chose this U channel is it is a 1/4 inch inside. So inside the U that this U channel is, inside that little U, that's a 1/4 inch inside. I tried to find this to link it in the description. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it on Amazon. I got these at a Hobby Town. And so anyway, that fits there. The other one is, I'm going to turn this around. The other one goes just opposite that one on the channel. See, the channel is facing this way. I've got it's called the webbing, is the inside of the eye channel. That webbing is facing up now. And then those are just like that. So now I'm just going to take a clamp. I wanted to kind of, line up, be straight across from each other. And then I've just got a little bit of another piece of styrene, just some sheet styrene. And I've cut it just wide enough to span these. Now, I don't want to do it just to span them. I don't want it to be this little tiny area in here, because I need this thing to give a bit of strength. When this thing is finished, let me get the clip here. When this thing is finished, what I'm adding right now, that is going to be the backbone of this. So I do want it wide enough to go from side to side. So that's what this is. Okay. I'm going to cut a piece off of it and I'm going to glue that on there. And I got to be really careful because I don't want to glue these little U pieces that I've got in here. I don't want to glue them to the I-beam. I just want to glue them to the channel that's on the outside of it. So very carefully, I'm going to go in here and stand on the outside and just a drop there. and just a drop there. I don't need a lot. One of the things that I typically do when I'm doing this kind of glue up is I'll put a little bit there, kind of like spot welding, right? Just to hold it. Let that sit. If you flood it, number one, any excess will go to that I-beam. You know that it's the I-beam is only there to support it, to give it internal structure so that it can glue. So just a little bit of glue. Flooding it will make that glue longer, because what I want to eventually do is once it's set up, I can take it off of the little holder and then I can put more glue. Just, you know, I know that probably is something that somebody that's experienced doing it, but I mean, it's a learned thing. So, you know, I'm just trying to help. So, whilst that is going on, I'm going to go back and show you what I do next. This is a leather punch. This is leather punch. I'm going to set this over here. And yeah, you can get them anywhere, craft store and stuff like that, and works fantastic for making these small little guys out of styrene. And so I punched the smallest size and like 2 sizes up from that. And that's what these are. And that is what I make these little, if you want to call them ears, that's what I make these little ears on the outside. And all I do there is I take a couple of these. I've got another piece just to show as a demonstration. I take a couple of these little guys and I'll stack them. I'm using pretty thick, whoops, see, it's lightweight. I'm using pretty thick stock. So each of these pieces is pretty beefy. Let me get another one that's thicker. There you go. And I put those on there, and they'll kind of naturally line up. You know, when you put these 2 discs together, if you set them like this, if you have enough glue there, it'll just slowly move to bring them together. So let that happen. And then I'm going to let that side, I need that to glue. I need that to really set up. When I made these clips, I let that part sit overnight because maybe the picture is better. Let's go here. See these little ears on the sides here? That's what we're making. Those are going to perform 2 functions. Number one, the smaller pieces that I just put in there, those are going to be where we put the little brass spring that we're going to make next. This outside one, this one right here, you see the bigger one, that we put on there so the spring doesn't fall off. So it's going to look like a doorknob, kind of, you know, really small and then bigger on the outside that'll hold the spring in place. So that's what we're making right now. And we want one of those on both sides. So back to our top down. This just might be ready to come off here. And see, that's the point. I wanted to make sure you can slide that off. And look at that. Now I can go in and like this sample, I can put the ears on the outside and stuff like that. And then I'll even, once it's dried a little bit more, I'm not going to do it right now because it doesn't need it, but I'll just paint in there and make sure everything's glued up real nice. Okay. So that's the basis for the clip. Now let's talk about making these little springs, because the springs are springs are pretty easy. It's brass. I had, and what size brass? That's a good one. Let's figure that out. I got my calappers. So that is 0.2 of an inch. Let's go in millimeters. And in millimeters, it is 0.5. So half a mil is the size of this brass. I tried metal. I have some steel wire. It didn't have the spring that the brass had. So that's why I'm using the brass. So let's go back to the top down. When I'm trying to cut my brass, I am doing it double the length or double the diameter, double the diameter of the hole that I'm doing. So if that's the size of the hole, I'm going to double it right there. Okay. So that's probably bigger than double, but that's okay. That's the wire I'm going to use to make my spring. Now I have this and it's awfully nice. Could you see what I was doing there? Yeah. I want to make sure I'm getting out of frame here. This is really nice. This is like a circle bending piece of pliers, and they're fantastic for brass work and stuff like this. Each of these, there's no flat on it whatsoever. They're round. Both sides are round. So when I want to do, and they're also tapered, so it's graduated. If I want a bigger circle, I go up here. If I want a smaller circle, I go down here. I want relatively small, so I'm going to go right about there. And then I just bend them over like so. And that's where I can stop right there. I just make basically a bobby pin. Remember those? Our grandmas and moms had bobby pins. That right there can now be installed on the clip, because what I do is I bring it to the clip. I've already got one on there. I just bring it to the clip. I hold it there and I cross these and basically flatten them out. So I'll show you how to do it off of the clip, because that clip isn't ready to do it on. But basically, it's around the clip. I just bring them together and then cross them like that, and then leave them like that. Now, when you've got it formed like that, you can take them on and put them off, or take them off and put them on. That sounds a little better. Like this one. If I want to take that clip off, it's pretty simple. I just grab here and like that. So I can put this bigger clip, because maybe I got a bigger hole or something like that. I can just take this, put it on like that, and it'll stay. You kind of push it like that, and it'll stay. That way you can have it in a larger hole, a larger opening and stuff like that. I think that's pretty much it. I already told you, on the end of these, that is not straight. That helps to do it, or helps to aim it. I guess the last thing I would say about those is you could, if you were a pretty good, smart person, you could make that a threaded shaft in lieu of having this. Hey, Christian's here. Sorry, I did not, was not paying attention to the notes, but Christian is here. Hello, Christian. American Genius. If you haven't seen him, you guys got to go see American Genius. Brilliant stuff. This is the actual mount for the light itself. After I made this, because I just did it with stuff I had, I thought, it would be pretty cool. And Joyce was saying, what about making that thing adjustable a little bit more? Because right now it's adjustable, but remember, I got to cut it off and I got to hit it with a piece of glue. Well, it would be pretty easy to do a threaded, like 3D printed, a threaded mount like this. So you could bring it down, bring it back up, and it would stay exactly where you want without glue. Wouldn't be hard for somebody that does it. I don't do that. So that would be easy. But to make it yourself, this is great. And I think pretty darned effective. These I'm going to, once everything's done here, they'll go in, they will be mounted in, and that's how I'll have my lighting. So there you go. That's your mounting. But I do want to kind of get back to talking and answering questions, and I would love your feedback on the topics of lighting and stuff like that, because I want to talk through some of these things that maybe I don't even have an example of, but talking through them is pretty good. But let's go back here. We're gonna do that in a sec. I think I got some pictures to show. What am I doing? I don't know where I'm at or where I'm going. Now I do. Okay, so we are done with that. If you have questions about this, if you want to see more about it, I am, making videos and all that kind of stuff. I'm just slower than molasses. Viewer spotlight. Hey, look at that. Hello, Scott. There is your 1978 Buick Hearse. It is a 1-to-1 scale build. Scott and his friends built this. And this is really fun because when we were on one of our group builds, for the patrons, we invited Scott in. And so it was John and Scott and I, and we're just, talking about fun builds and fun things and stuff like that. And then Scott comes up and tells us this story, and we're like, oh my God, we need to know more. And he goes, well, I'll send you a picture. It's down the block. So that is so cool. Thank you, Scott. This is so fun. I had a friend that had a hearse, because they were pretty inexpensive. They were massive fuel guzzlers, and they had big old engines. They had to carry a lot of weight, so hearses had big engines in them. So it was really, really fun to talk about this. And thank you very much, Scott. I think it's a fun picture. And what a neat project doing something like that. That would be a lot of fun to do. And you know what? I think it would be a great diorama, because you can find a 78 Buick Hearse. I'm sure you could. And the cool thing is in 24 scale. So it'd be big, it'd be a good size. That would be fun. And then, whatever chassis you built, buy that kit and put that chassis underneath it. So that would be really, really fun. Paul says, good weather on that, Scott. Yeah, didn't he do some nice weathering? It looks so natural, supernatural weathering. Very, very nice. So thanks very much for sending that in, Scott. Folks, if you have something you want to share, even this is fun. It's just great. This is something you built. This is something you did with your hands, with your friends and stuff like that. Send it in. I want to see your models. I want to see your dioramas. I want to see your creations, but it doesn't have to be, this diorama you're doing. I built this with my hands. That's pretty important. So I do a lot of stuff in my shop that's not always diorama. I built, or I just recently put in Ghost's door, his cat door, and I've got to put an outside door on it. So I have a cool idea for that. My pleasure. And thank you. It was so fun, Scott. First hearing about it and then seeing the picture. So that's great. I'm hoping John gets a chance to see it too. So that's pretty much about it, folks. I do want to say hello and thank you. And I appreciate it to all of my patrons. I've got a bunch of patrons. I've got a bunch of members. And I really appreciate it, folks. That helps keep the channel going. The sponsorship helps keep the channel going. And I've got big plans. This is my job. This is what I do. This is not me retired. This is not me hanging around and doing stuff. This is me creating content to get out to you that I hope you really enjoy. And part of that is I will sometimes build other stuff. I'm not always going to be working on the diorama. And I'm saying that now because I'm just about to start more woodworking for the base for the diorama. And, some folks may be like, well, gosh, I'm not a woodworker. Well, just like I have to do everything for the diorama and plan, the stuff in the diorama, I got to do that with the base too, meaning that I can't just build the base and then when it's all done, go over and get the diorama and put in it. I have to build them as the symbiotic relationship between the diorama and the display for it, because the display will be doing something very, very specific. It needs to putting at a playing height, because I'm going back to this idea that has been suggested, and I didn't think I would, of having it as almost a table. I really enjoyed building the display for my World War I trench diorama, which is freestanding. It stands in my office, and I love it. I think it's really fun. It can go anywhere. And when I started thinking about the display for this, I just naturally, because it's so tall already, I naturally thought, well, you just go on just to display something or other. But there's a couple of factors. Hiding the things in the lower part of the diorama is a big deal. It's part of the story. If you're not doing that, then you can't really surprise your players. You want to go around a corner while you're playing your D&D campaign and be surprised and not know what it is. You don't want to have to be able to plan for it. You don't want to see too far down the field so that you can say, well, I'm not going to use that spell now because I may need that spell in the future. The whole part of D&D is I did use that spell last time and I can't use it now. So it's important that I cover this and you don't see it when you're playing the early parts of the campaign. And then parts of it will be revealed. That all has to be contained in this display stand. So I've got a lot of stuff flying around in my head about how to do that. And I think it's going to be fun. but that's, again, it's part of the diorama. It's coming up, and I just wanted to let you know it is. So if you start seeing woodworking and stuff, it's the display stand and stuff like that. So thank you so much, everybody. Scott, my pleasure, and thank you very much. And then Scott says, took 2 people to hold the sponges for doing your your chipping and stuff like that. Brilliant, Scott. Love it. So thank you so much, everybody. Look, this was a very stressful week for folks. And my best advice is to go outside and walk, breathe some air, get all the digital nonsense out of your brains. And folks around you might need a minute. They might need a hug. Literally, this is not, I'm not being facetious. Folks might need just some time to spend with you, or spend away from you, or spend in a whatever. Give people time this week. This happens a lot in something that we've all been working toward for so long. So give folks a little bit of grace. I think it's going to help everybody. And breathe some fresh air. Get outside. Stand on your porch, stand in the rain, stand under a tree, hug a tree, whatever you got to do. Get some nature into you, because that's the best healer that there is. And I bet it'll make you feel better. Listen to some music. Do whatever you got to do. I'm building models and I'm having a lovely time, and everything else is going to shake out. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I am going to be doing this, and I'm hopefully going to be meeting up with some friends this weekend. I'm not going to even say anything, because I say this in the past, and then I don't show up because something happens. So I'm just going to say I'm going to hopefully meet up with some friends this weekend, and if I do, I'll let you in on it. Have a wonderful weekend.